Come on, Mom. Let me travel. Son, you're only 14 years old. You're too young to travel. Come on, please, Mom. As Issei would ask his mom, because it's his destiny to travel to Hyrule and find his lost possessions. Little does his mom know that this is the hero that will one day save them from the darkness ahead. So, when his parents are asleep, Issei decides to do something stupid. He decides to run away. A decision that he actually really won't regret that much. Luckily, over time, he has been saving up money in case of an emergency. In US money, he has saved over 10,000 bucks worth of money, which is more than enough to start a life. Sadly, he is too young to get a job. Well, I'm a lie. He's too young to get an actual apartment, but since he's 14, he can legally get a job. But they can't give him different they can only give him certain shit that are meant for kids better him. But anyway, the next morning, when Issei's mother and father wakes up to check on Issei to tell him that it's time to get up to school, Issei is no longer in his bedroom, and he left a letter on the desk saying that he is left because there's something he must do. As we do a quick flashback, Issei is actually he's writing that letter at this moment, telling his parents that he can no longer see them because there's something he must do, which we will find out in the story. Issei dyes his hair completely blonde and pierces his ear, putting blue earrings in each one so they won't be able to recognize him. What you're saying, he did this all overnight. Well, technically his hair, he dyed his hair, but he had to put a bonnet on and everything, so because he had to let it dry and everything. But now when he pierced his ears, that was extremely painful. He didn't use a gun. He put a needle. He did the needle basically. But which is, as I've seen in the Parent Trap, looks extremely painful to a person. But so this is when Issei is now at the airport. Luckily, Issei's taller than most people of this age. He's about 5'8". So he can and he took his father's identification, his ID. And he basically got he just got a fake ID. Which luckily, the fake ID was pretty close to him. So he knows that he has to leave his old life behind. One day he might actually come back as a student. Fin to do high school, he's not sure yet. So Issei then travels to Hyrule, where he just sees how much ruins it's in. Every time Issei touches something, that's something that he sort of knows. He knows what it is. He kind of gets a flashback, yes, he actually gets a memory back to his past life. As Issei eventually, he's basically stuck in Hyrule. But as Issei's walking around in Hyrule, he then gets attacked by a mob of bokoblins. Luckily, there were only the red versions of them, which are the weakest version. So Issei, or at least known now as Link, because with the fake ID, he also changed his name. He also changed his name when he did the fake ID, basically. Mind you, he still has regular clothes on. He doesn't have a tunic or nothing on yet. He basically is just wearing some jeans, some all black jeans, some plain black shoes. Well, actually, he's just wearing regular boots and a coat because he doesn't know where he has to go. But luckily, the coat he's wearing at the moment isn't too thick. So yeah, well he's not, no, I'm not lying, he's not wearing a coat, he's just wearing a regular, like, sports jacket, basically. So yeah, so Issa, he gets attacked by the Bakublin. Now, the difference is that now Issa, when he went shopping, he also got a regular shield to protect himself with. He didn't get like any special shield, it was just a regular old shield. Just the travelers. It looks like the traveler's shield from Breath of the Wild. So, he defeats the Mababaku single-handedly by himself, which he then continues to roam all around Hyrule, so he eventually gets into the Korok Forest, which he then grabs the torch, and then he lights it, basically, and he then just follows the torches, basically, how you do in Breath of the Wild, to get to the Korok Forest, which he then gets at the last 2 set of torches, which he then sees that every time he, like, goes, like, far out into the forest, he basically gets sent right back into the same position. He doesn't understand how it works. But eventually, he noticed that the flames are in the direction of the flames are, like, telling him to go somewhere. So he follows the flames, basically, which leads him into the Korok Forest. Like, not the Lost Woods, like he was just in the actual Korok Forest. Which he then sees the Master Sword as soon as he sees it, he then begins to be able to shaking. He begins to shake like he's having a seizure, basically. And he falls down. He falls to the ground as he's now having a memory. It's all starting to come back to him, basically. Just seeing him wants his blade. It's starting to come back to him. He sees Zelda. He sees him fighting Ganondorf. He sees all of the, he sees the 3 great powers fighting him. He's seeing himself telling Zelda to get out of here. He's seeing it all. But it's all coming piece by piece. It's not like him all getting it at once. So let me rephrase that. He gets a piece of the puzzle, basically. He doesn't see the faces of the 3 great powers, but he just sees like kind of like like a vision, how you're seeing like some parts of it. But yeah, that's basically. Which he then walks up to the Master Sword, with which the Great Deku Tree then cups in. How long has it been? And looking down, seeing a boy who looks to only be the age of 14, as the Great Deku Tree says. So, you have finally arrived, young one, he would say. Who are you? You say with and respond. My name is the Great Deku Tree. In one of your past lives, you say. In your past life, he said, as I meant to say. You came here and showed me that you were the one who could seal the darkness, the wielder of the blade of evil's bane. He would say, the blade that evil ones can't touch. I see you now, approximately 500 years later, and now you've come to regain your blade. He says, he nods his head. This is all I can tell you, young one, he says. It might not be as easy as it was before. I can tell you're not at your strongest, he says. Well, that's kind of obvious, he would think to himself. As he then walks up to the pedestal, as he then begins to pull the Master Sword, which then he nearly passes out from that. I see you're not ready to pull it yet, young one. Then the Great Deku Tree would say, in that case, I know somewhere else you can get it. I know there's something else that you can get, he says. What is it? He would explain that. There's 3 different things. There's one important tool you're gonna need, key item, he says. And he said, what is found by saying, what is it? It's called the Sheikah Slate. It holds most of your past items, but some of them won't be on the Sheikah Slate, and they're spread across Hyrule in over 270 different locations called shrines. As he then gives, the great DxD tells a Korok to give him a map of where to find the Shrine of Resurrection at. As Issei then begins his long journey, he then encounters a horse. Issei knowing that if he does this on foot, it's gonna kill him. It's a brown horse with white hair. As this is the descendant of his horse. He names her Epona. As he doesn't have a saddle at the moment, but he will soon. As Epona and Link, or Issei, as he's also called, but basically, sorry for the noise in the background, y'all. But yeah, they would basically travel out Hyrule. Issei discovering many different things, seeing many different people. Well, not really people, but more of creatures. There are still races here. The races are still here. They're just not as powerful as they once were. There's not as many. Then the Zora, Goron, and Gerudo race. He hasn't found any Hylians, though, which really surprises him. The land of Hyrule that was once beautiful is now a ruin, you would say. Issei now knowing what he must do in order to save Hyrule, the land he once lived in his past life. Eventually, Issei would arrive to the Shrine of Resurrection, where the Sheikah Slate is bestowed onto him, which he then begins to hear a voice in his head. This voice being Zelda or Irina. He's not sure of the voice because obviously they both is mature since they were children. But she then congratulates him on his first achievement. And Issei now having one of his key items, he then gets told by Zelda or Irina that he needs to regain the power of the four great divine beasts, she would say, I'm sorry. And yeah, so basically, Issei now having a lot of his weapons and armor back, he's in heads to the first major milestone, being Zora's domain. He sees, now, by the way, y'all, I know I'm talking in the middle of the story, but by the way, he will have, these are not the only dungeons / temples he'll be going to, which they're really not, they're more mega stuff. Which Issei then hops back on Epona. He then begins to ride his Epona. He would then give Epona her proper saddle back. But she would then tell her that they have an adventure to have. So, we go back into Japan as Issei's parents has filed Issei under who's missing. The police are looking everywhere for Issei, but they're not sure where he is, which is pretty surprising. Now they really wish that they just asked him where he wanted to go and he could have traveled there. But now he's lost. As we then time skip, when Issei's now 17, he has saved all four divine beasts and took on the trial of himself, gaining his own divine beast, being the Master Cycle Zero, a superpowered bike, or a motorcycle, you can say. He doesn't replace Epona, though. he keeps it, but when he's in Japan, and eventually, after over 3 years of overall training and learning overall and saving the divine beast, Issei would then return to Japan. But he would tell Epona that she must stay in the stable, so she'll be safe and no one will try to hurt her, basically, because it's kind of weird having a horse like roaming around in Japan, basically. And anyway, Issei would then take out the master. He would then summon the Master Cycle Zero, hop on it, and hop on to it. Issei not being legally able to, being 17 and legally able to have his own apartment with the money he's gained from, him getting all of his stuff back. Well, it's not even money, it's really gems. Yes, diamonds, sapphires, rubies. He then takes it to not a convenience store, but he takes it as he auctioned all this stuff up. He auctioned all of his diamonds, which is like max diamonds, mind you. He becomes a billionaire off of that. And he still has some he hasn't given to them yet. He becomes a billionaire off of it. But Issei knows that there's one thing he needs to do. He needs to finish high school. Well, he needs to start high school, actually. Luckily, Issei was already intelligent enough. Was already very intelligent. So he would only need to do 2 more years of high school left. He then enrolls himself into 1 year of high school left. So he enrolls himself into Ko Academy. Which, mind you, let me let y'all know something personally. Issei, he can use all 4 of the Divine Beast champion abilities, and then they don't have a weak gen except for Mipha's Grace. So let me explain what the 4 champion abilities are. Mipha, she revives him basically, but he also has theories when Mipha needs to recharge the ability. With the Daruk, he can use Daruk's protection as much as needed, along with a Bro's Spirit and Rivali's Gale. He can use all those abilities as much as needed, except for Mipha's Grace, because that would be a little broken. But he can only use it once a day, basically. But Link can use several different sword techniques that he's read within the scrolls inside of the Sheikah Slate, along with just overall, watching them on the Sheikah Slate. He can use the Skyward Strike, the takedown. He can use the Great Spin attack, the Hurricane Spin, which is a stronger version of the Great Spin attack, which he can use the Tornado Spin attack, which basically creates a tornado from how much he's spinning. He can use the Jump Slash. He can use the Jump Thrust, the Down Thrust. And yeah, he can use basically all of Link's iconic sword techniques. He doesn't have many of Link's of his past selves, like key items, basically. He would only be able to possess the ones from Breath of the Wild, which are more of the key items that are in Breath of the Wild. And Breath of the Wild are more of copies instead of their original selves. So the Seas Breeze Boomerang will eventually break. The Bukaran, will eventually break. So all of his weapons will eventually break. But unlike in Breath of the Wild, he can actually restore them. Well, some of them, except the Bukaran Sword, he can restore that because he will eventually get the Bukaran Sword. So a lot of those other things he'll be able to restore. But yeah. But eventually, so yeah, as Issei starts high school again. Re-enters high school, actually. Stuff for a little while, for a long time, goes pretty normal. He learns he learns everything about the high school. He mostly stays to himself. And one thing that all the girls are always around him because he's a Chad, basically. He's a Chad, the girls like him. Not because he's also mysterious. He's never talked. He doesn't even grunt because that's kind of creepy. But yeah, he doesn't really talk. When he does, it's very little. with everybody being interested in him, especially members of a occult research club, because they see that he's always has a sword on his back. Well, no, I'm a lie. No, he always has this tablet thing on his waist, like strapped to his waist. They don't know what it is, but they just think it's just a regular tablet, so nobody really thinks much of it. But the members of the occult research club can sense great power within it. Oh yeah, I forgot something to tell you. I forgot he can also use like spells. Now y'all, I'm only giving him 3 for right now because there's a lot of spells in a lot of other Zelda games that Link can use. But for the sake of it, I'm giving him these 3 to start off with, besides with the champion abilities. He's going to be able to use the Inspire, Summon, and a massive amount of fire in 1 blaze and 1 basically attack. He has Neru's Love, which is a protection spell, which nullifies any attack hit by him for about 5 minutes. Then he has Four's Winds. If he puts a magical point where he can put a magical point wherever he wants to, and he would just teleport there basically. It's kind of like how the shrines work, except that he can put it anywhere basically. Along with him also having the Traveler's Medallion, which if he doesn't want to use any of his magic, he can just use the Traveler's Medallion that he can place anywhere and he'll be able to teleport there. Now the members of the Cult Research Club sense an incredibly high amount of magic within him. They just don't know that he can use it. So, one day after school, as Issei's walking home, he bumps into a girl from another school. Her name is Yuma Mata. She would ask him to go on a date. Issei being pretty surprised because he's never, been asked to go on a date in his life before because he's never really been interested in it. So, for the first time in his life, he takes up the offer. And he eventually, he wears his best studs and everything, put on that tux. Nah, I'm playing. But he wears pretty casual stuff. Like nice enough to, to have human not, think of him as, him just being overdressed for the occasion. But yeah, they just overall just have a lot of fun. Like, they go to the carnival, they go to the movies, the carnival, sorry. And, he just takes her shopping and stuff. So she overall has a good time. And then, after the most perfect date, they end up at a water fountain, basically. Now, I know what you're thinking. What does the Fallen Angels have to do? Well, what does Ace have to do with the Fallen Angels since he doesn't have the boosted gear? He has an incredibly high amount of magic. That's kind of obvious. So, she asks Ace a very important question. Would you die for me, Issei being confused because he's never had to answer something like that before. With her voice then becoming more, stronger, basically, more deep. If he then seeing her transform into a fallen angel, telling him that he was a fool for believing that she actually liked him. Who would actually like someone who literally doesn't talk at all? Because, wait, have you been spying on me? Yeah, she would say. He say, now knowing that it's now or never. He then puts up Nehru's Love, which is a spell. She's like, wait, he can use his power. He say then summoning. He say now using his taking out the Sheikah Slate, which he would then take out the master. No, I'm a lot, not the master sword. He would take out He would take out the oral. He would take out the Knight's Broadsword, which is basically a sword from Breath of the Wild. It's a pretty basic looking sword. And he would then take out the Hylian shield. He would then dash at her, which she would then do a light spear with the light spear completely destroying when it touches the barrier that's around Issei. Issei then punches her in her face, sending her down to the ground, with her then making a light blade from her magic, and which they would then clash with swords. Issei, obviously being a better swordsman than her, would then overpower her when it was like going pushing her back. He would then say, take that, take that. He would then slash her very fast, which she would regenerate from the wounds. But Issei would then strike her with lightning, kicking her down, which Issei would then power up the Knight's Broadsword, which he would then switch it to the Royal Guard's Claymore, which he would then stab her right in the center of her stomach. Seeing her not move anymore, Issei felt a sense of comfort, knowing that it's over. He would then say, as he begins to walk away, Rainier slowly gets up, as Issei then gets stabbed in the center of his chest. But while Issei's on the brink of death and Rainier leaves, Issei then stands up unfazed, as he was saved by Mifa because she's, revived him. Issei then says, that was a close one. Ria is now saying that this boy is something else. And guys, that will be the end of part 2 to What If Issei was the reincarnation of Link. I hope y'all liked it, and y'all will expect many videos from me this month, along with me continuing me and Crimson's collab together. And a bit of a surprise on February 1st. Just know that. Y'all won't expect it. Just expect something, but y'all won't really know what it's gonna be. Now, I'm not sure what I'm gonna call this episode, but Happy New Year, everybody, even though it's been past New Year's for a bit now. But, Happy New Year's. Hope y'all all have a good day and everything like that. And peace out, y'all.